Welcome back to Arise News, Nigeria Decides 2023, as we try to explore as many viewpoints as possible regarding what has been happening with the elections. We are now being joined by Femi Awuyemi, founder and chairman, ProShare Nigeria. Femi Awuyemi, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Well, let's go straight into the business. This election has been described as a watershed moment in Nigerian history, more so as it's the 7th consecutive election since the return to democracy in 1999. How much of a watershed moment do you think it is? What stands out for you in this electoral process that started yesterday?
Okay, so in terms of watershed, that's actually the appropriate description, maybe not a full description. In the first sense is that this is the first time in Nigeria's electoral history you're not having any military person on the ballot box amongst the major leading contenders as you have. Also, it signposts the transitions we've made in terms of building up our democracy, in terms of efforts. Also, this is the first election where we're using a digital type imprint in terms of our election. So if you look at it in terms of the persons there, the process, the regulations, and the impact, it is there. But most importantly, this election has been one that since 1993, when we had the MKO election, it has been one that has galvanized a lot of people to speak to the major issues in there, in which you find out that there is no major front runner in the history of the country. And I must say, honestly, it has been a welcome development. And it is important to recognize the moment, irrespective of the outcomes. Because then there are certain issues which we've never even bothered to address, and I'm sure that we'll discuss them.
Let's actually speak about those issues because several issues have come up since the polls opened yesterday morning, starting off with the fact that there's been quite a lot of electoral violence reported, particularly in the south of the country. Also reports of the Beaver system not uploading the presidential results, which is quite interesting because there didn't seem to be much of a problem with National Assembly results being uploaded through this system. But when it came to the presidential results, we were hearing of problems, particularly again in the south of the country. And then just now we spoke to our correspondent Benga Ashiru, who is in Kano, and ad hoc INEC staff are reporting that they have not been paid. They cannot feed themselves, they can't get water, they don't have money for transport. How are the elections going to be free and fair, or counted as free and fair, with all of the issues that are currently in front of us?
For those who understand the concept of game theory, you would understand that the concept plays itself out based on certain variables. So the first two variables that changed the whole election dynamics was the central bank position. We then changed a whole lot of things. So the cash issue did not only affect whatever the objective was, but it also affected so many other things, including the ability of those who are organizing the elections today. In fact, if that was you, the violence and the Vivas election speaks to a more bigger issue than the issue you are talking about. It speaks to the bigger issue that in 25 years, have we not been able to institutionalize the concept of managing an election to the extent that we are asking that, who are the guys who should run the election? Should we be having somebody who has expertise in logistics management and census coverage or whatever to be the CEO of INEC so that we do not have these issues at a lower level? And so these outcomes you see are actually a derivative of the consequence of the fact that there was no planning. Now, be that as it may, the relative, the relative impact of this incident is how these elections are decided. If it does not rise to the materiality level, then the elections will go. If it does, then we will have to have a way in which we do rerun. What I do not accept as a spokesperson of the organized private sector in some ways is that if an individual is disfranchised, it is not acceptable. But I see that happened across the board. But is it in such a quantum enough to invalidate the election? The numbers are still not coming in. And I do recall that even INEC itself, its reporting of the results has not been in line with its own processes as well. So there's a bigger issue. So in effect, the first question Ruben asked me was that it was a watershed. The question is that Have we improved in terms of the reporting? No. But does it invalidate the question? No. The results will be the results, and what we have to learn as Nigeria is to recognize the moment. Because the most important moment for me is not the violence or the vivas. It is the fact that Nigerians spoke up. There is a group that moved from the baby boomers, moved away from the millennials into the Generation Z, who are saying this is where we want, this is how we want Nigeria to work. And I hope that we do not silence their voice.
Okay, yes, talking about how this is a watershed moment for Nigeria. This is the first general election since 2011 that will not be postponed. In 2011, the election was postponed. 2015, it was postponed. 2019, it was postponed. Maybe that will be a plus for INEC, perhaps. But what do you think is the big challenge that we have faced? We have had an outline of so many problems. But for you, what is that big thing that has to constitute a lesson as you prepare for the next general elections? Is it infrastructure? Is it logistics? Is it competence?
It's competence, pure and simple.
How?
There's no reason why. So the reason why you put professors in charge of most of these things is that you rely on their competence and capability and their integrity. But those are not the key requirements to operating a logistics-based requirements. You need the best. Look, you should be considering the most important capable people who understand how to do logistics-related work. This is a wholesome project management work for which there are skills and competencies available for which we can appoint. If you take a look at how the UK, the US also conducts the election, their recruitment criteria is to find some of the best hands who understands how to manage logistics and people and to deliver a wholesome thing. Now, here's another thing we must consider, Ruben, and this is something I wish I'd discuss with you in person. So there are three layers. Yeah? There's a layer between where you talk about elections. There's a second layer, which is census, which you come forward. And there's a third layer, which is the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. There's a commonality amongst those three levels. For example, the people you put as representatives in your zones are based on population, right? So there's no way we can run through the gamut of our electionary process without recognizing that whatever we come with census is validated by the elections. It's also validated by the Bureau of Statistics. So the three are not mutually exclusive. They can work, but they can operate as three agencies, but they cannot operate as silo agencies. So for me, to answer your question, sir, is that the most important lesson is that we have subjugated competence to running from a leader-based position whereby the military type era where you just dictate, you are the people there. We've never changed anything about that, because that's the only way we conducted elections. We just find professors because we believe they're okay. No, find the most competent Nigerians, put them in charge of running a structure, and by now we should have a infrastructural basis for conducting the elections.
Certainly. Certainly.
Exactly.
Just a moment. Arise Niger Delta correspondent Ovietimi George joins us from Bayelsa State to give us a situation report. Hello, Ovietimi. What's the situation on the ground?
Thank you, Leila, and good afternoon to you and to Dr. Ruben Abati. Well, yesterday, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, announced the postponement of 141 units, polling units in Bayelsa State. That's in wards 4, 6, 8, and 14. And so the INEC in Bayelsa pushed out a statement that the elections will hold today at 10 o'clock. Now the people are here, but I must say that the election here, Panchia Central polling unit 07, and over there is Panchia Central also, but polling unit 026, that's 26. The INEC officials arrived 2 hours behind, but the good thing is, if you look this way, you see that voting is ongoing. Now these are the boxes, and of course you can see somebody over there trying to cast her, trying to write, of course, who she will be voting. Of course, it's a secret ballot. She will come over there to cast her ballot. Well, that's the situation here at Panchia Central Ward. And of course, unit 4, 6, 8, and 204. But this is where people are waiting now. Somebody earlier cast his vote here, and yesterday they were told to leave because there was a shortfall in the ballot paper for the House of Representatives. But today they're back here now. Please come. What's your name? And tell me, have you voted?
Yeah, my name is Francis Edwin. Yesterday, we voted. Yesterday, we were here. We had a very good turnout of persons who came out to vote, and we were not able to vote because INEC officials and materials were not sent to this polling unit. But today, the INEC chairman instructed that elections should be reheard in this polling unit, and today we came out. We had a large turnout of voters, and we've had our votes casted. For me, I've casted my vote.
You don't have to mention who you cast your vote for. Thank you very much, Edwin. Well, Edwin almost did what shouldn't be allowed to be done on the air. Well, that's the situation here. It is quite impressive that the people have turned out to perform their civic duties. Last night, Adesuwa Moron asked me if there wouldn't be voter apathy after the postponement. And I told her the people are determined, they are confident, they are dogged and grim to perform their civic duty. And that's exactly what they are doing here also. Now, election is also going on in other polling units. My colleague here, Theophilus Agidi, well, tell me about your observations elsewhere.
Well, like you earlier said, Mr. George, the determination of the people is something that has been very, very obvious. They are willing to effect a change, not just a change, the change they want, and that's why you can see all of them coming out in their numbers. Like you can observe, you can see a lot of women, even the aged people and the people who are physically challenged. In fact, some people have come here, and when they notice that this is not their location, they move around. When they notice that this is not their location, they take the extra pain of moving around to get their location, even at the cost, even at that financial cost to themselves. And so that's how it is. You know, there's this determination that you see that is raw, the wanting to bring about the change that they want.
Thank you very much. Now, going beyond Yenagoa to the hinterlands, I understand that in Oboimbri, voting took place today. That is in a far-flung community in southern Niger local government area, in a state that is arguably 70% water. Taking materials to those places could be some form of logistical challenge for the INEC, but they had all the time to do so and somehow could not do that. Something is also a recurring decimal I've observed today. Some persons, the names of some persons are not found in certain polling units, but when they go elsewhere, they find their names, sometimes in two places, but you will not be allowed to vote until you get to a place where you can go through the accreditation process and, of course, cast your ballot. That is what we're observing here. The take-home is 141 polling units. In 4 words, in Yenagoa local government area, the people have turned out to perform their civic duties. Ruben?
Well, is it certain that in all the 141 polling units, the process is going on smoothly? There is no report of beavers not functioning, no report of conflict between thugs and security agencies. Is that what you are saying? Do we have that for a fact?
Yes.
And for how long will the voting last? Is it from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, as some papers reported, or from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m.?
Well, Dr. Ruben Abati, the machines have been functioning well. You just voted, right? Please, can I talk to you? What did you observe before you were able to cast your vote?
Okay, what I observed is the ad hoc staff, they are doing their best, but most of us cannot be able to vote because our names, the beaver cannot capture it. So that is a little problem we are having here. But at least they are trying their best. We thank God. We are exercising our civic rights. We believe God will help us. Thank you.
How long did it take for you to cast your ballot? You know, after the initial hiccups with the beavers machine, you are able to be accredited, of course?
Yes, I was here since 8 o'clock in the morning, and if you look at the time by now, this is almost after 2. I'm voting by now. This is the time I voted. Though they didn't waste time because I've already found my number before I went to the place for the beaver. So it was very easy for me to locate my name, and I was able to vote.
Your name, please?
My name is Engineer Ifeanyi.
Engineer Ifeanyi. You could have done some work with the beavers machine, huh? Thank you very much. Okay, Engineer Ifeanyi. Well, you asked a question also, the functionality, how well it functions. We just heard from Engineer Ifeanyi. You know, different places, different challenges, but what I've been able to understand is patience is required for any voter to perform his civic duties. So if you can wait for a while, you'll get the chance to vote. That is the situation here. You asked about the closing time. Usually it could have been from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. But they started here. Instead of the 10 a.m., it was at 12. And so I don't know if there would be an extension to, let's say, 4 p.m. But the thing is, they usually announce that if you arrive on time, you're in the queue. Before the time, everybody who came early enough would be able to get accredited and would be able to vote. So I believe that is exactly what will happen here today. So it's going on smoothly. I want to anticipate that it's the same elsewhere as I go around.
Thank you, Ovietimi, for that update on Bayelsa State. And from Bayelsa to Delta State, where Arise correspondent Jemima Bolokot joins us from Warri to give us a situation report. Jemima, great to have you with us again this afternoon. What's the current situation on the ground?
Hello, Leila. Right now, we just left the INEC distribution center to Uku Square in Okere, which is Ward 5, Unit 12, just 100 meters away from INEC Distribution Center. If you see right behind me, you can see some women, elderly women right there with babies waiting for INEC officials to come with the materials, but they are yet to receive any. And most of them say they came as early as 7 a.m. today, and yet the situation is still the same. So if you look also to my left, you can see some youths, restive youths, as well across the streets, also very restive and all that. This Uku Square in Okere is highly populated by the Igbo traders, and the youth here are really getting restive here. Back to you guys in the studio.
Well, that's Okere. Do we have any information about what is going on at Oshimili, local government area of Delta State, where there was also an issue yesterday? And if the INEC officials have not arrived at after 2, when will voting start? When will accreditation start? When will it end?
As of yesterday in Oshimili South, the polling unit, some of the polling units we visited actually arrived late, which was around 11 p.m. But it was disrupted by the heavy rain downpour yesterday. But later on, distribution of electoral materials was distributed at their units. But they were also angry, defiant youths there, but they later on voted as well. But this area, Warri South, which is the epic center of Delta State, with a large population, they are yet to receive their electoral materials here. Well, I have one of the leaders here with me who can give us more insight of what's really going on here. Can you tell me your name and tell me what's been happening since yesterday?
Okay, my name is Api Iwere Uliola Odobike. I'm a resident in this particular area. There is my polling unit and there's my ward. Since yesterday, we've been here since the hour of 8 in the morning till 6. There was no material from the INEC. But later on, we saw materials that were just passing through, but none of them came to this particular ward, Ward 5, Unit 12. So the elderly women, both young and old, the youths, were all angry that we couldn't vote yesterday. Today, we are equally here again. Now we are still waiting patiently whether materials will come. So we don't know. We want to appeal to the appropriate authority, INEC, and whatever authority that is in charge of this particular election to tell us why or give us reasons why they refuse to bring material to this particular polling unit for us to be able to exercise our franchise.
Okay, this is about 2 p.m. Nigerian time. What will be the situation if these materials are not distributed to this ward? I believe there are some other wards down along the road too that are yet to get the electoral materials. What will happen at this particular ward with these women waiting since 7 a.m. this morning?
Actually, if there is no material, if they refuse to bring material to this ward, the people in this particular ward will not be happy with the government, because they were deprived from their rights to exercise their franchise. So we are not happy at all. The government should think of something to do about it, so that we want to elect our leaders by ourselves. We don't want somebody to be unpicked, but we want to vote the person of our choice. That is our problem, and that is what we are crying for. The materials should come. INEC should give us a reason why they refuse to bring materials to this particular ward or unit for us to vote.
Thank you very much, sir. So there you have it. The youths are restive, elderly women waiting outside under the sun. They have their water bottle over there under the table. They are ready to cast their vote, but yet the INEC officials are yet to bring in the materials. Like earlier on I said, the electoral officer is yet to speak to Arise, and we will try and see if we can get a hold of him. Thank you. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Jemima, for that update. Very unfortunate situation that we are looking at here. And let's bring this conversation back into the studio. We've spoken to our correspondents in two different states, Bayelsa and Delta states. In Bayelsa states, where voting wasn't going on yesterday, things seems to be going rather smoothly, although there are reports that the BVAS is not working that well. In Delta states, there are polling units that still have not received voting materials. What is your take on all of this?
So if you look at those two states, they have different configurations, right? One is water-based society, which is more like islands. The elections conducted in islands, right? Mm-hmm. So how many years did INEC have time to prepare for this election? So the peculiarities of it require logistics. Go back to my question, logistics. It requires issues around signaling. In a situation where Nigeria promoted Starlink, you would think they would adopt such a thing to be able to remove any electronic type issues. And then you look at Delta. Delta doesn't have the same problems they have. And so you can only do so much as to bring it down to conjectures as to conspiracy. Where competence is speaking so loudly, don't excuse it with conspiracy now. And so what is the competence level of the people who you are put in charge to manage it? We will not put, let me give you an example. This country made sure that we did cashless for everybody, but we could not compel everybody to be a PVC registered person. The most important connection between the citizen and his government is his PVC, right? Are you saying that this country as it is, with the level of knowledge available at the Gen Z level, at the millennial level, and those of us who are baby boomers, that we could not construct how we can solve this problem? But here's what I'm saying to you. We change. You know, Ruben started by saying it was a watershed. We change everything, but we never change the structure. We've always appointed professors, but that thing is dated. Okay. But I know he's academic, so he would be against it. So let's go.
It's good you mentioned the point about cashless policy. Ahead of this election, people were saying, the cashless, the redesign of the Naira notes will have an effect, and all that back and forth between politicians and the federal government. At the end of the day, we had the presidential and national assembly elections yesterday. Some people have said that has helped to prevent vote buying, even if we were told the EFCC managed to arrest some people in the FCT, in Lagos, in Rivers. But in terms of what we witnessed in the past, we didn't see unscrupulous distribution of cash at voting centers. Even people who were doing bank transfers, they were figured out by the security agencies and arrested. Now, I would like you to comment on that. But even beyond that, is that on the eve of the election, the CBN also came up with a directive about the tenure of bank directors, saying that from being an executive director to being chairman of the bank, you can't do more than 20 years. And some people have been trying to draw a connection between that and the election. Is there any connection? In the same way in which people have drawn a connection between the redesign of certain denominations and the elections.
So let's go straight to your two questions. If I get you correctly, you asked the question about the impact of vote buying, and the second thing was the implications of CBN making a pronouncement 24 hours to a national election. So if I get the context very right, I can respond. One, as regards vote buying, I've always believed, and I'm a founder of ProShare, in my company I always believe that in God I trust, every other thing is data. If we've done elections for the past 5 years, 5 times, Have you ever read any report where they show the significant impact of vote buying on election? No. Ruben, have you read any such report where they showed any significant impact on vote buying? You remember in 2007, President Umaru Yar'Adua, may so rest in peace, he said the election was not good enough, right? He openly admitted, but there was never any report to show the incidence of vote buying. In 2011, we did not have any of such. In 2015 and in 2019, there was never any report. So for the central bank to come out and say that there is a huge issue of vote buying, it's like we know things happen. But if there is no basis for it, official action should be based on what? Documented evidence. So right now you are saying, oh, so how did the cash policy work out here? It worked out irrespective of every other person because everybody is involved in the thing if it is true. It's like you saying there is oil theft. If the banks do not tell you there is oil theft, there is no oil theft because the documentation is clear. So for me, I cannot see any evidence where the basis upon which they said vote buying was so in respect of one particular person had played a role here. But did it help? Oh, we were all here in 2011 and 2015 and 2019 where we did trader money. It's not a comfortable conversation for us to have on air, but we did trader money. What is that, effectively? We call it social intervention funds. But here's what I'm going to say. I do not think the real idea, the real threat is in not focusing on the INEC structure, whereby the process where people participate and the outcomes that they get out of it is totally monitored and is clearly defined. Any impact of vote buying, there are agencies in the Federal Republic of Nigeria that can deal with that. The whole function of economic intelligence also is to understand money patterns. And I think that is what the CBN was reacting to. It saw some money flows and they needed to act. Maybe we will learn from this experience. So I won't totally ignore it, but it is not about vote buying. So to the other questions about the intentions of Emefiele, it is very difficult for anybody to understand what Mr. Emefiele is thinking about. But that issue, we had addressed it since June. What was it that we addressed? That policy was necessary at the time when governance, corporate governance was at the lowest ebb in the country, and they brought it in. But we understand that it was dated. Now, 10 years after that particular policy, the last person was Ife Sekobo of Heritage Bank, who left in September. But then we changed to a financial holdco institution. We never adjusted that policy. I think CBN is trying to adjust that policy back. Maybe it's a question of timing, but I can assure you that that policy does not significantly move the whole thing. Because, Ruben, let me explain something to you. The purpose of a holding company is that you have a bank, you have a pension companies, you have an insurance company, you have different regulators in there. So the fundamental challenge is that who is the financial regulatory person, rather than central bank, who can give such a license other than what we have? And again, it goes back to, let's get back to this election, because these distractions are not important. See, this election we have here is a watershed for the reason that I saw an elderly couple crying in my polling booth saying that in our lifetime, we never thought it was possible, but it was possible. Are you following what I'm trying to say? That means that they see their children and everybody very involved in the whole election. That is what we can build upon. Because on the same Friday, you mentioned, what was it, tenure. What you should have mentioned was Nigeria entered the grey list, whereby it made it difficult for us to raise money and to do things. So whoever takes over power here must understand this moment, must therefore understand that right now, what we need is to bring the whole of Nigeria, our first 11, our second 11, our third 11 together, irrespective of tribe, party, and whatever, to deal with the issues in front of us, which is much more important. Now, for those who have taken particular positions, I do not know, but I must say you honestly, I think that if I were to give a scorecard, irrespective of what I said concerning INEC or whatever, I think Nigeria has moved forward.
But would you say that there are factors that are still clearly holding Nigeria back? Because trying to stop vote buying is one thing, but there was clearly sabotage in other ways in these elections. You know, we had a guest on the show earlier who argued that INEC cannot be fully blamed here for what went wrong. The states also have to take responsibility. And his entire premise was that there are INEC staff that have obviously been manipulated. turning up to polling units, for example, saying that you don't have ink, or there's no text on the ballot boxes and you weren't provided with markers, or whatever the case may be. Clearly, there's still been sabotage in other ways, would you say? Or what's your take on that?
So, like I said to you, everybody must come. Ruben, what's the right word? If we come to equity, we must come with what?
Clean hands.
Clean hands. In the analyst profession, you must come with data and evidence. I don't have any data to support any of such conclusions. So I might have seen 3 or 4 or 15, which is clear to me to be true, but it's not representative of the major sample across the whole nation. So that may be true. So I will not discount the intelligent observation the man made. But the truth of the matter is that is not the real problem we are making. It's like you're in a football match, it's a 90-minute thing. You're leading 4-0, 80 minutes to the fact. It doesn't take you long to do. We've done it. We call it the miracle of the man in Nigeria. We were behind 4-0. We won 5-4 at the end of the day. So elections are like that. And so analysts and people who comment must come with that level of responsibility to understand that what you see may not be fully representative. And media must also understand that we cannot accentuate all these things. In fact, I'm asking the question, who was responsible for making sure that results were out for people to see, rather than individuals do the work? INEC.
INEC.
They failed. Did they do their good work? Maybe. But in terms of where does the responsibility lie to deliver this thing, it is INEC. So no matter how much you like them, and I like the chairman myself, I also like my friend, the AFCC chairman as well. But what I'm saying to you is that at the end of the day, this is about Nigeria. Nigeria has gone through a watershed moment where the youth, not since 1993 have they spoken like this. And it is important that we must step up collectively our ability to beef up that integrity base for which the results that are coming out can be relied upon. And I think it should be relied upon because there are work being done, which I do know right now, to make sure that those things are okay. And whenever the result is, what I think the main challenge for us is to understand where did we miss it? How can we avoid not repeating the same mistake by, one, addressing the competency factor in terms of who is in charge, how do we run these things, and how do we deliver the results, as it were.
Okay, before you joined us, we had, on tape, the three presidential candidates of the APC, of the PDP, of the Labour Party. Mm-hmm. Well, at the end of the day, a president will emerge. The coalition center has already been declared open. Now, whoever becomes president of Nigeria, what, in your opinion, should be the main priorities from day one? Because as it is, Nigeria is in dire straits with inflation at close to 22%, 21.82%, unemployment at 33%. Well, I mean, Steve Anke says that in reality, it should be about 55%. Mm-hmm. That's Steve Anke, the Johns Hopkins University professor. So what should be the priorities of the next president? What should he do?
If you had asked me this same question outside an elections conversation, I would focus on the economy. I'll focus on social economic impact. But I can tell you honestly, what is most important in Nigeria right now is to restore hope. See, there's a qualitative factor that is necessary to build a nation. And it's that people believe in that enterprise. And as such, the difficult decisions we would have to make would have to come from the fact that we understand that we have to take certain hard decisions to deal with it. On every indices across the board. If you have to be truthful, the last 8 years has not been an El Dorado for Nigeria. It has actually been a very, very dire situation for Nigeria across the board. And this is no disrespect to the persons or the people who are in charge, but I can honestly tell you that it hasn't been a very good one.
Okay, hold your thoughts for just a moment. We need to cross live to Lekki here in Lagos, where Arise correspondent, senior correspondent Oba Adeoye joins us now. Oba, what's the situation on the ground? We understand that there's a bit of commotion in Lekki.
I can hear you, but let me see. I think you are asking for the situation of things right now here at Lekki.
Yes, please go ahead.
Right now we are at Lekki, and you can see a crowd of residents here behind me. They are protesting the fact that they are supposed to have a repeat of yesterday's election, because the election could not take place yesterday in several places in Etiosa. And right now they are out on the street calling on INEC to commence the process. And I reliably gather that INEC is somewhere very close by in that primary school behind me, and they continue with the collation despite the fact that several polling units did not vote in Etiosa. INEC yesterday listed Etiosa as part of the local government where a rerun election was supposed to take place, but I've visited quite a number of places here in Etiosa today. I am unable to locate a place where any election is taking place. So these residents are saying that they want to vote, that INEC should not continue with the collation until after they have voted. So the anger right here now is that they are being disenfranchised and they want to exercise their civic duty. That is the situation right now, right here at Lekki.
Well, but yesterday there was a report that, there will be fresh elections in certain parts of Lagos, including Etiosa, Surulere, Oshodi. But as it turned out later in the day, we were told that that was fake news. Do you have any information on that? How that information got into the public domain, and whether indeed INEC had said that that was indeed fake news?
I barely can hear you. I don't know why that is so low from the studio, but I guess you're talking about the possibility of elections being repeated in certain local government across Lagos today. Yes, INEC said that yesterday, and it listed Surulere, Okota, Etiosa, Ikate, and a number of other places, including Oshodi, where elections will be repeated in some of the units. But I've visited most of these places that I mentioned today. As I'm talking to you, I just came in from Festac, where I've been, for some time before coming in right now. And I can tell you that we are unable to locate anywhere where a repeat election is taking place. I've been to Lekki this morning. I've been to Surulere this morning. I've been to Ikate, both Ikate, Legushi, and Ikate in Surulere. And I can tell you that no election is taking place in any of these places today. So as we speak right now, these people, they insist that they want the election to hold there at Lekki until until they are able to vote. They say INEC should not go ahead with the collation of the result. But I can also tell you, like I said earlier, the collation of results is underway right here at the Lagos State Model Primary School in Lekki, very close to the Marwa gate here. And the people are saying that they want at least an INEC official to come out to address them in the list and assure them that even if the election is not going to take place right now today, they should give them a date when the election will take place.
That the protest is peaceful, but I see right behind you there someone that looks like Banky W. Maybe we'll come back to you after taking this quick story so that you can talk to Banky W. Okay, let's have him immediately.
He's okay, so Banky, what's the situation right here, right now?
Okay, the situation is we are live in Etiosa, and there are some issues. Multiple polling units, by my estimation, at least 8 polling units in Etiosa, there was no voting whatsoever. People were there from morning till evening yesterday. No INEC official showed up. There was a communication thing that came out today that said voting would happen today between 8 and 12 p.m. We have been here since 8 o'clock in the morning to speak to the INEC officials to say, when are you sending officials to these polling units that are affected so that people can exercise their civic rights? They've told us that they've not received any directive to go out and conduct elections, that they are waiting for that directive. People have been, the same people who were out yesterday all day have now been out again today, waiting in the sun, waiting for INEC to come. INEC has not shown up. Now, they want to go ahead with collating the votes from all the wards in Etiosa without addressing all the people who have not voted. That's number one. Number two, there are multiple polling units where there was suppression, where there was violence, where there was disruption. And by law, in those polling units where those things are happening and we have that evidence, they're supposed to cancel those polling units and run the election again. I think the days are gone when Nigerians will just sit by and allow people in authority to do whatever they want without being held accountable. So what you are seeing is a community that is intending to hold the people in authority accountable, to allow them to exercise their civic rights, to vote for who they want. And I think it's only fair. And at the end of the day, even if they are not ready to do it today, they should come out and address the people and let us know when they will do it. You know, when are they going to do the elections? And then I don't think anybody here wants to be aggressive or violent, but they do need to be spoken to. They do need to be communicated with. They need INEC to come out and tell them, this is what's going to happen, this is the day that you will vote, this is the time, and show up there. And until that happens, people are not going to take it. This is the same community where NSAS happened. This is the same community where NSAS happened, the Lekki toll gate. It's the same people that are affected. It's the same people. So you cannot keep trampling on people and not expect them to push back. So really, all we're asking is for a level of accountability and transparency in our electoral process, and I don't think it's too much to ask. So the people are here. I've been speaking with INEC on the inside of the collation center. They assure me they're waiting for directives. So until they bring the directive, we'll be here.
Who exactly have you been speaking with, among the INEC officials?
So the electoral officer is inside. Her name is Mrs. Falayemi. So she's inside. So she's the one that has been telling us that they're waiting for a directive from INEC at the national to go ahead. So hopefully they will give her that directive so she can come out and communicate to the people and let us know. And so we wait.
All right, let's wait to hear from INEC. As soon as they clear that, I will be able to, bring you up to speed with what is happening right here, whether the election is going to take place today or they are going to schedule it for, the nearest future.
Okay, thank you very much, Obadeoye. So let's take this next story. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has asked the national chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, to instruct collation officers for Saturday's election to upload the results to the INEC server immediately. In a statement issued by his media advisor, Paul Ibe, Atiku says that this has become necessary to checkmate some governors who are trying to compromise the results at the local government collation level. According to the former vice president, and I quote, "It will be a disservice to Nigerians and a negation to democracy for anyone to subvert the will of the people as freely expressed in their votes of yesterday," unquote. He called on Nigerians to be calm but vigilant to ensure that anti-democratic elements who are masquerading as progressives do not steal their mandate. Well, Leila, there you have it. Now we have the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party saying, like other, persons in civil society, that results should be uploaded.
The other issue as well that people have commented on with results being uploaded is that you need to have a particular link, registration details on the INEC website to log in to actually view the results that are being uploaded, which excludes many people from being able to review the results. And there are questions around the transparency of this. Let's get your thoughts on the comments made by the former vice president and current PDP candidate, Atiku Abubakar, with regards to this.
He did not require Atiku to say this. We've said it in the first opening statement we had on this program.
Yes.
Let us not confuse incompetency with conspiracy. There were clear guidelines on what had to be done. There were dry runs done. There were dummy runs. There was a dramaturgy applicable. What Banky W was saying, and I don't know what party he represents, he has just said exactly this mind of Nigerians. Allow us to vote, allow the people's will to be reflected, allow it to come out. Is that too much to ask from your government? But again, having said that, here's what I want to say. He said two things that we should worry about, Ruben. He said, elections did not take place yesterday. What were the rules around if elections did not take place? Were there any rules to say what would happen?
As the Electoral Act says, in those places, election will be conducted within 24 hours, now, which is the case in Bayelsa State.
No, in this particular case, there was no election being done in 24 hours in those states where it happened, in that location where it happened. It's just very clear for us how this thing is working. So if I go back and I started my conversation to say, let us focus on where it is rather than motives, intents, or whatever. If we're going to run a country, let us run a country from accountability, what do you call it? Consequence for actions. So there are no consequences for the INEC not doing their job. It's almost like we're walking around the Constitution and talking about the non-justiciable acts in the Constitution. So right now we'll be, look, did you listen to the statement by Atiku? He said he's appealing. Why would he appeal? He shouldn't appeal. He should just invoke the rules of the game. Don't forget, one of the key points in the job of INEC, which is a difficult job, by the way, and with all due respect to everybody there, is that they spend more time discussing with parties and clients around how this thing will go. If this happens, this will happen. And
we'll come back to that shortly, because there are also issues about deployment of technology that INEC boasted about and said they were ready. They had tested it in Anambra State, in Ekiti State, in Osun State. So what went wrong?